Happy New Year. In a recent newsletter, I shared that right now, this very moment in time, is not the moment to rush out the gate to train for a half marathon or to start a juice cleanse. And yet I know this time of year people are looking for renewal, especially if you were eating a certain way during the holidays and maybe even feeling kind of lousy. That's why I'm really excited to have my friend and colleague, Dr. Valencia Ray, here with me today. Valencia is a medical doctor who saw the shortcomings of conventional medicine. So she decided to retrain as a functional medicine practitioner so that she could help people harness the innate ability of the body to heal in lieu of using pharmaceuticals to mask symptoms. She supports middle-aged women who want to release extra weight, increase energy, balance hormones, and love themselves back to a vibrant, healthy life. And one of the reasons I feel so great about having Valencia here with us today is that she's so holistic in how she works. We're going to talk about the cycles of yin and yang as they relate to us through life and also through the year, and what happens when we're out of alignment with these energies. We'll also share an opportunity to take a deep dive with Valencia. So thank you so much for being here with me today, Valencia.
Thank you so much, Marie. I'm really excited about being here, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning, but we are born on the same day.
Yeah.
So, which is really awesome. And so I love talking with you.
I know, me too. I love that. I love that detail and that connection. So we're basically in midwinter. It's the season of the water element. It is the most yin of all of the Chinese five elements. It's a time for renewal after the intensity of a year. Like, theoretically, if we've been working on the crops and gathering the crops, it's like there's nothing left to do but rest and rejuvenate. And yet, I find most people have a hard time doing that. And they have a hard time doing that this time of year, let alone at the end of the day or the end of the week. I'm curious, in your work, how do you see our modern lifestyle affecting this relationship to yin and yang in our modern lifestyle, affecting people's health?
Yes, yes. Well, I have a lot of personal experience with this one, and it didn't come through when I started this journey. It wasn't through TCM or even understanding what yin and yang meant or anything. I was quite young, and when I decided to go to medical school, I can look back and see how completely young I went, like to the polar end and beyond. And so ultimately, what that looked like in summary was, being in medical school, barely turning 21, being finished with medical school almost a whole quarter before the rest of the class finished. And then jumping out into that, became this eye surgeon especially after I did my internship, and then jumped right out of internship into this full-time job while I was at the same time planning to open a practice. So I'm juggling that with a full-time job. And anyway, make a long story short, at that point in my life, but for an inclination towards spiritual practices, it could have been quite dangerous. I mean, I was headed to burn and crash, because then life continues to go on, of course, and I had a series of personal tragedies all back to back in the last quarter of that year. It was 1991. And now that you bring it up, it was this time of the year in 1991 that, after having lost my father, well, a couple months before that, having lost my second trimester first pregnancy, like 4.5 months, and my father. And then behind that, the day after he's buried, getting on the plane to come to San Francisco from Chicago to take an oral surgery board for ophthalmology, and coming back from that and jumping right back in that brand new practice which had opened. It was burnout, and you can, like you're saying, this is yin, and I can look back and look where I was in 1991 during yin season, going into the holidays.
Yeah.
And it was really bad. So fortunately, through grace and just feeling trapped and no way out, fortunately, I intuitively just that still small voice kicked in and just told me I was going to make it. And I clung to that. And it's been a journey ever since back. It was a journey. Now I can look back and see why I'm so interested also in yin and yang and stress, because it didn't like turn off after that, but
Mm-hmm.
it gradually got better. But when children did come, went on to have two more children, it really became very much so important that I start winding like having more balance in my time and in my mind. And that
Yeah.
set me on this course of like really understanding what happened to my mind to make me go from being because as a child I wasn't driven like that. I didn't even know I was going to be a doctor. I kind of jumped into it at the last minute, and I had given up my art, my music, my rest, and it was affecting the health, and I was having different health challenges. So I look at yin and yang at both the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual level now. And the
Mm-hmm.
elements of water and fire are like my two favorite to balance here.
They're the polar opposite. I mean, they really are like
I know.
the polar opposites. I mean, if any one of the five elements could be represented by yang, it certainly is fire, and water is yin. And maybe I'm going to pause and realize for those who have maybe are just jumping into my newsletter for the first time, or just learning about Chinese medicine for the first time, I want to make sure everybody knows the
Right.
difference between yin and yang. Um, if you've ever seen a symbol of the yin and yang symbol, it looks like two fish, kind of one on the bottom is the black one, the one on the top is the white one, and the yin energy represented by that bottom one with the little, like two little circles in them.
The white one.
I wish I had it here and ready to go to share with everybody. Maybe I'll pop it into the newsletter. Um, the yin is the dark, quiet,
Right.
still, cool, and it most closely represents like hormones and the body's natural moisture and the rest and digest nervous system. And then we've got yang, which is bright and loud and warm and outgoing, and it's very active and doing. And it I don't want to necessarily say it's not rest and digest, but it certainly is a more dynamic aspect of the body. It's like metabolism, libido, energy. But you can imagine that there are different ways of being in the world. So I just wanted to make sure everybody heard that.
That's great. Yeah, great idea.
Yeah. And I can, like what you're describing about your own story, how young you were in your life, and then even the basic yin functions of the body, like growing a baby.
Yeah.
We're thwarted through the amount of yang
Exactly.
that you were exhibiting in life. Do you what kinds of issues do you find most women grappling with? I mean, it sounds like you work with women who are kind of in this cycle.
I do. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So I'll put it in the context of what I call the four key stressors, because a lot of people in general don't realize that stress is a cause, like 95% of chronic disease is related somehow at a root cause to stress.
Mm-hmm.
And there is four areas of stress. It's not just about a little anxiety. Okay. It's really a big deal. It affects your whole physiology, as I just said, chronic disease. So let's look at the first key, which would be the mental emotional. So there is a mental emotional balance to yin and yang. And for me, I was really had gotten myself into this go focus and just like tuning out everything to the point where I just lost my music and art interests. I was a dancer, as a hobby, and just all of that went out the window, and it just became this black and white medical school, nothing beautiful about graphics or anything. It's just all like memorization, mental, mental, mental. Well, that's going to really drive your potentially the second key, which is the adrenals and the sugar balance. So
Mm-hmm.
here you are putting all this extra stress on the adrenal glands, and now you're dumping cortisol and epinephrine, and that's throwing off not only some of your interactions between your brain and neurotransmitters, but it's throwing off your sugar balances, which is also, it's all a vicious circle. All of this is going to happen, and you don't have to be a medical student. You're a busy woman. You're a busy woman, and you're juggling. I eventually had two other children after that, and that helped me to settle the fact that I had lost the first child and all the other things that went along with it made me instantly like have an epiphany. So fortunately I had the resources to get all the help I needed and kind of shoved all the house things into someone to help me.
Nice.
I could spend the time with the children, and I could, because I own my own practice, I could juggle the time a lot. So I just want to say, pause here and just say, sometimes we have to make a choice.
Mm.
And I understand that everybody didn't have the kind of choice flexibility necessarily I had, but I do want to remind people that I could have literally easily doubled my workload. Like the volume was there, but
Yeah.
I had to make a conscious decision to make my priorities what they would be, enough time for self-care, enough time for the children, and not let those around me guilt trip me out,
Sure.
because that's a pressure on women where like I had to turn down an offer to take a teaching position at this major university in the Chicago area that I had finished my training in, and I turned it down because it's like I had to practice, I had this, I got that. So in other words, that we do have some control over this too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so that's adrenal. So that's mental, emotional. There's adrenal and sugar balance, and how we're eating on the run, or we're eating too much sugar, we're downing Red Bull, we're doing those kinds of things, which I used to do. Shudder,
I
you
know I
know,
am like
uh,
a former Diet Coke.
a
Oh,
diet.
like
Oh,
I'm like,
I
oh,
know. Same thing.
oh,
Same thing. Now I'm like,
what was
oh
I
my
thinking?
gosh. Good thing strong bones run in the family. At least I have the advantage of maybe it not like melting my bones. So and then the third grouping would be like inflammation. You think of that. And again, they all weave together because the Diet Coke can cause the inflammation, and all that sugar can cause inflammation. But then inflammation can also be caused by the mind in a way where, you know, anger, those kinds of emotions, you hear
Yeah.
like someone's inflamed, you think anger,
Yeah.
so that could be running out of
Well, and
balance.
even the anger, it's the this like it's so wonderful that you felt you had the certainty within you that you were able to say, no, I can't take that position because culturally we're, I remember being in undergrad and being told like you should take this more stressful job because you're going to learn more. Nobody said like what kind of life balance do you want. It was
Right.
assumed you should go bust ass and like make money, which is great. You need money to live and pay your rent, and also but no question to the holistic quality of it. And
Exactly.
when people don't feel they have options or don't feel like alternative scenarios are nourished or nurtured, the resentment comes in.
Surely.
And like if all you're doing is giving and saying yes, of course
Mhm.
someone's going to be angry. I just felt the need
I'm glad you brought
to
that up because, um, early in life, I was passive around my boundaries of speaking up,
mm,
it's a context of family, a patriarchal family. I'm a girl, I'm the younger, five of six, and, four boys in a family. So, yeah, to your point. And then when I swung over into the other pole on that too, I'm a pole swinger. That's why I know so much, about this balance. Um, then the anger was like rage at times by the time somebody steps over your boundary, it's like, get back. Okay.
Yeah.
For me, I'm bigger, I'm tall and strong. And so I didn't have too much physical issues to deal with, but that verbal was something else. So at the end of the day, that is still this kind of imbalance in the body and the energy system. And I don't think anger is a bad thing, but it's something you don't want to let the sun go down on because
Yeah.
will build up and cause all kinds of stress in the body and mind over
Yeah. Well,
time.
and the presence of ongoing anger for sure says to me, from a Chinese medicine
Right.
perspective, that there's a great deal of imbalance. You can have a constitutional tendency toward like righteous indignation, right? Feeling like, why is it like this? I want to make a change. But if someone is having road rage or just,
Mhm.
lots of conflict in relationships, that's a sign of imbalance. And it's good,
Exactly.
good to work on your stuff consciously and not get caught off guard by it. And that to me is the difference.
Yeah, and you see how this relates to key one, mental emotional. We often
Mm-hmm.
forget that the emotion is a physiologic response that affects the hormones, the neurochemicals, etc. And in
Yes.
fact, is absolutely repressed emotion is absolutely connected to chronic disease.
Yeah.
So there is this connection there with the inflammation, etc. So you think you're so I just want to clarify, it's not about repressing that anger.
Yeah.
It's about learning tools and strategies to release and transmute that anger, not by dumping it out on other people, but
Yeah.
using different holistic skills to transmute that anger into a different, energy form, right?
That's
Different
a great word. Transmute.
body. And then, yeah, yeah. Remember the old science of energy cannot be created or destroyed, matter cannot be created or destroyed, only as form change from one form to another. Well, it applies to matter and it applies to energy. And then this fourth key is about sleep and insomnia, and that's
Mm.
certainly a problem for people, I find. Part of it is just environmental when you need to, most people don't realize the power of our devices and the white light and how it raises your cortisol and lowers your melatonin, makes your brain thinks, oh, we're midday now. So
Yeah.
drop the melatonin, raise. And then all this stimulation is potentially pushing up cortisol. And some people are more susceptible to that. And you find yourself in a loop, and heaven forbid you're eating snacks before bedtime because now you're throwing off the adrenals and the sugar and the
Yeah.
kidneys again. All of that is working together to affect the sleep hormones. So now you have these deadly four things potentially that you are unaware of. And it's not only important to become aware of them, but to have the resources and tools to naturally deal with them because
Mm-hmm.
medications are not the answer.
And yeah, there's another way that people are self medicating through they're self medicating to make their sleep better or to calm down. And that one's a complicating factor too. It's people feeling like they need a glass of wine at the end of the day to calm down or feel like they're having some fun. But then that, unfortunately, for most people, that's not helping their sleep either.
Oh, for
Having,
sure it's not. I have stories
yeah,
to tell about that one.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
how, for a little while I was trying out the R ring because of something I was involved in. And after menopause in particular, I can't even drink red wine or
mm,
any alcohol without it having an effect. And it took me a long time. It was not until I got into functional medicine that I connected the dot that I wasn't just waking up in the middle of the night between 2 and 3, right, liver time,
yep,
uh,
yep,
for no
yep,
reason. But I was having some heat and et cetera. And after I made that connection, and this is later, I was wearing an R ring and absolutely 100% of the time, just even testing it out, I would go from being in the 90s on like my well-being and its overall
mm,
to like nose diving down into like I think the lowest was in the 60s just from that, like a glass
yeah,
too close to bedtime. So now for me, and I do find this very common for women, you think it's relaxing you or something, or you're out at the party, be really careful because that alcohol not only has some associations now that are particularly problematic, like cancer risks, but
Mm,
it also is going to potentially disturb your deep sleep and your REM your next day. And some people
yeah,
more sensitive than others, but just keep that in mind.
yeah, yeah. It's a complicated one in the Bay Area. It's
Yeah,
like
I know.
the backyard of wine country.
Yeah,
It's like a hobby for some people. But anyhow, that's for each person to
for
navigate.
each
And
person to
yeah,
navigate, right?
yeah. So, what are the? I mean, what are the typical like? What's a typical picture of a person who's coming to work with you? What are they often like?
Mhm.
I don't know. Can you paint a picture for us? Like their
Yeah,
age, their chiefest concern, like what their life has been like, and
yes. Well, they range everywhere from, well, I've had a range as young as 20, actually, and it's pretty shocking how the health is affecting younger people these days too.
mm,
But ideally, it's more like 35 to 75.
mm,
Um,
mm,
Average probably being in their 40s, or 50s. And a few of them are proactive, like wanting to optimize. They're not having a lot of problems, but they realize that they don't have lifestyle support around certain things, or they don't know what they don't know
yep,
after talking to me. And so they want to optimize. But most people, unfortunately, still wait until they're having issues with their hormone imbalance or their sleep imbalance, or they didn't know they were pre-diabetic until I told them or
mm,
something, because the system doesn't check the right testing until
yes,
you're so far along in your diabetes. It's not really prediabetes when they're talking about it. It's really diabetes. And the longer you wait, the more your adrenals or your pancreas is being drained of insulin. So it's not like you want to ignore that. And it's reversible. That's the thing. People don't realize you can reverse. I've helped women reverse early autoimmune problems, high thyroid, low thyroid, uh,
mm,
issues, ulcerative colitis issues, problems with whatever. There's some other ones, certainly mold and things that are not even detectable, really, in the conventional system. But then when you start to have menopause, what most women don't realize is that 2/3 of all Alzheimer's patients are women, and it has
mm.
a lot to do with after menopause, your estrogen is tanking
Oh,
lower than a man's. Like when you get the hormone test in a menopausal woman versus a male, she's always lower by a lot. And
yeah.
estrogen is a memory hormone. So, yeah,
This is a huge implication. I mean, this is like, I mean, you're talking in some ways, we're talking about hormone problems and sleep problems, and like these medium term issues.
mhm,
But in the long term, I've heard you mention cancer. I'm hearing you mention Alzheimer's.
mhm.
Like these are the longer term reasons to kind of uh,
Exactly.
dial this in.
To dial it in. And that's why, I have this functional medicine side that's ordering tests and is uh, specialized one-on-one treatment. But
Mm,
I put more emphasis these days on the well whole wise side,
mm,
which is the more holistic approach. And bring in partnerships, collaborations, speakers like acupuncture and TCM, et cetera, because well, even when you do the one-on-one piece, you want that to be sustainable and you want
mm,
that to be like a lifestyle. You don't just like, oh, I'm gonna fix this and I'm gonna run back to what I was doing. So with the Well Whole Wise, it's literally like it sounds, wellness, which is the sustainable well-being and health and astonishing energy and vitality.
mm-hmm,
And wholeness is like bringing in the whole bowl of wax, the mental, the emotional well-being, and just some basic ways of being emotionally resilient, uh,
mm-hmm,
that we don't realize that we don't have as a skill set. It's just some basic emotional resiliency, having a more flexible mindset, because When you have a rigid mindset, you're more likely to turn on your stress. And then, the wisdom of having all that, because to your point, that's what's aging us. It's not time. There can be a vast difference between two 80-year-olds. And I've witnessed it. I used to wonder that back in my eye surgery days in ophthalmology, I can still see the situation in my mind. This woman waltzed into the office at 85 and she's a yoga teacher. And I remember before I knew she was a yoga teacher thinking, wow, she's like more fluid than I am even. And then when I found out her age and she didn't look it either, I was like, wow, you're 85. Okay. And then I remember another time a woman walks in the office and something she had said about her history, I'm thinking in my mind, okay, she's probably in her 50s or somewhere. She was 38 or 9. And I thought she
Mm,
was like, headed towards 60. So it's really not this kind of one size fit all aging.
yeah.
And these kind of factors affect it, the whole yin yang.
Yeah. Well, and just yeah, drawing attention to it, bringing awareness to it. I love the fact that um, you're not just reporting to people what their labs are saying and telling them what to take, but giving
Right,
them skills.
right,
Um, and I also think it's, I don't know, I don't think we should scare people into thinking that to get well they need to just throw out their careers. But I do think that it can take subtle shifts of like feeling more grounded with a no in your back pocket so that you're not on one extra board of directors or you know
exactly.
one too many you know campaigns for the PTA. It's like we have such habits of
Right,
giving and teaching people those extra, the more spirit-based, emotionally based tools is huge, huge way of helping people kind of reclaim some of that output so that they're not operating in so much yang energy, kind of.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, in fact, one of speaking of the mental emotional of the four, that was one thing I had to uncover in myself and deal with, which was what was driving that yang, like needing to prove, needing to show.
Yeah.
Because when I was on my path to become a doctor, I didn't have a lot of visible support. I had a lot of naysayers. I was the first physician in my family ever. I inspired one of my sister-in-laws to go after I did.
Nice.
She was a little older than me, and she was supposed to have done that, and she didn't. Once I did, to her credit, she got herself in medical school and got through it. But the whole point was that I was so driven because there was this insecurity inside of me, um, that as I learned a lot about cognitive neuroscience and how to change the brain and how to deal with your emotions, it was driving me like, you're such a fake. Something's wrong with you. I mean, it was a quiet, small voice, but it was
Mm,
there. And so it's like, along the way of becoming a doctor, there were some people who were pretty brazen about their naysaying for no reason. It's not like I didn't have the grades or anything behind what I was doing, but it would be like, I would just, yeah, I'll show you. If it was a person in authority telling me how hard nobody gets in ophthalmology, I literally had somebody say that. And I'm like,
mm.
oh yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
met somebody in ophthalmology last week. So,
Boom.
so at the end of the day, I told you I had a little sassy mouth, but I remember thinking, yeah, I'll show you. And so it was like a driven behavior. And I had to like rein that in and say, you have nothing to prove, you have nothing to show. You're good enough just because you breathe. You're
Yeah.
here,
Yes.
you're on the planet, you're good enough.
Yep.
Okay, and that helped a lot because then I could not be so like overextended and feel like somehow I was, letting a part of me down or whatever, what would they think? Or it's so interesting how we can put ourselves into such a pothole.
Yep. Yep. What a way, what a great descriptor of what it is.
Oh, you're running
I,
off the road, your course
yeah.
journey.
Yeah. I I I would be so I mean, it sounds like what you're offering, this Well Ho Wise program, is so unique and holistic. And I understand it. It happens. It launches periodically, and it's the next group is coming up. Is it January 16th? You're
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
So I have a cohort starting January 16th, and I think that's a really excellent time to start. We're in a new
Mm,
year,
yep.
new year, new you, and it's not just like this empty goal. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to lose weight. No, this
Yep.
has to do with whether you need weight loss or not.
Mm.
It's about metabolic reset around having a more balanced metabolism. It for me, I've been able to get myself back to my high school metabolism, based on my size and weight and energy, etc. So that's why I'm not a believer that you hit this milestone and now all of a sudden your body has to break down to this level. I mean, granted, I'm not like literally looking like I was at 18, but I
Who
do.
wants who wants that?
I never want to go back. I tell you, I don't ever want to have to repeat this journey. But to have this the energy to do all that I need, the ability to lay down and go to sleep at night without being too wired and all that. I learned through the school of hard knocks, and now I'm even at a phase of like really reconnecting in with nature, really reconnecting in with play and joy. I even I made this challenge to the universe, and it did not waste any time in showing up. This year I in particular spent extra time in nature, and it was so nourishing. And I've been having this intuition around the importance of getting back to that playful me, which was very prominent, in my youth. And it's so energizing to the nervous system, and I'm continuing to balance the nervous system. So I thought, well, one thing I really loved to do when I was a little girl was jump double dutch. So I would like to jump double dutch. Okay.
And did
I
you?
kid you not. It was only a day or two before I stumbled upon a friend. I was, just happened to pop on Facebook, and I saw her jumping double dutch. I was like, no, back in Chicago, where I'm from. I'm in California now. And I reached out and said, wow, whatever. Make a long story short, found out that there was this 40 plus double dutch club that she was in. And they're around here in California. And so I found one that was about an hour away. I have video of me jumping double dutch. And what was so funny, um, I actually did put it out on social media, it's on my Instagram, is that it's like time and space never changed. I jumped right in, and it was just like it never stopped. And
No.
it was amazing. I mean, it was really fun. I laughed and I had fun. We did hula hoop and whatever. So yeah, look how quickly the universe responded. So yeah,
Yeah.
you can do, but the whole point is that really elated my feeling, body and joy, and made me realize, wow, the universe is really listening.
Well,
I know
for
it is.
those
I'm exaggerating.
for those who gosh, if there's anything that uh, any of the things that Valencia has listed, sleep, weight loss, energy, or if this picture of getting back onto the onto the asphalt with a two jump rope, is it two double
Yeah, it's
dutch?
true.
Yeah.
And we had the
Whatever
music going and everything.
whatever your double dutches, if there's something that you've been kind of wondering if you'll ever be able to do again, or kind of reminiscing back when you once were able to do something, if you've got that story going for you, you might want to look at this Well Whole Wise program that's coming up January 16th. Valencia, if somebody out there, it's a group program.
Yes.
And
So it's
how
a
many?
group program. Yeah. And I could just tell you a little quick
Yeah,
about it. So
please.
it's online. You can live anywhere in the world, and then you have a private portal, and you have a health coach for 4 sessions, and you can have more if you want. Then this 12-week program is a 10-week modules, one module a week that's released, and you have this private portal where Your account will have videos, infographics, um, all kinds of information on different topics. But we meet live too. Like every other week, I have a speaker come in. You know, I'd love to have you come in when we can talk about something in TCM. And it's weekly Q&A live with me. And then in the portal, you do have like the topics. I just named some of the topics. We'll cover things like intermittent fasting, optimizing digestion, medicinal mushrooms, naturally improving and optimizing sleep, activating your vagus nerves and nervous system education, because I find a lot of people only hear about the sympathetic, fight, flight, freeze, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
understand the balance of that. Breathing and breath work, mindset mastery. You've been hearing me talk about how I've changed my mind and
Mm-hmm.
how neuroscience plays a role in that. Joyful movement and parasympathetic. And one of the nice resources I have is like best tools for a healthy home, where you have all these links to these fantastic things that you don't know that are hazards, in the home even, that are bringing toxins in the house, and you're just oblivious to it. So all of that is all a part of it as well. And the different speakers can cover topics like sound healing or hypnotherapy. And so it's very broad, and you can pick and find the things that relate to you. And then we have a group dynamic where you can post in the group and share your wins or videos and experiences, and do it in a community, which is more
Mm-hmm.
fun than just like being isolated, also.
Totally. So if people, it sounds like an amazing container and an amazing opportunity to work with you. And if someone is interested in learning more, I understand that you offer a free 15-minute discovery call.
Yes, yes. You can go
Like,
to the website page and
I'm going to include a link to that if someone wants to get on your calendar to talk about this program. Valencia, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience and your journey with us.
yes. Well, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed the chat, and hope it's helpful for someone.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thanks. Yeah. Happy New Year. Happy holidays.